So let's start with our map. You can see that I don't have anything inside my project, so everything we're going to be making them right now. And all of it's actually going to be code. We're not going to be using any art assets. So I'm going to make a folder called scripts, and I'm going to call this game manager. Okay, let's open it up. You can see that Unity changes the icon for game manager, so that is easily for us to find it. Okay, let's wait till the boilerplate is open. So for now, let's delete start and update. We're going to use it however, and actually we do need the start. Okay, and the reason why I'm using a namespace is if we import any assets or somebody else works on the code and stuff like that, you probably, most definitely, you're going to have naming conflicts, so that's why I always use a namespace. Okay, I'm going to now create create a method that is going to be responsible for creating our map, but we need a few values to work with. First of all, we need to know the maximum height we're going to be using, and we'll just go with the size that is also the Google game. So maximum height is going to be 15 and maximum width is going to be 17. Okay, now we need to know the color that we're going to be having onto each square onto our map. Okay, so let's set this to color 1 for the color square and color 2. Okay, next, before we start our map, or actually yeah, we can do this in here as well, let's do a texture 2D, let's call it txt, and let's create it as a new texture 2D, and we want for the height or the width, max width and then max height. Okay, this is going to create us a texture. Then we're going to do a for loop for max width and next another for loop for max height, and we're going to be setting up the pixels to either XY, to either color 1 or color 2. But how do we know which one to place? So this is simple. First of all, we need to know if X is an odd or even number, and we do that by using the modulus modifier by 2, and if the result is not 0, and on the else of that we're going to have that. If it's not 0, then it's an even number, it's an odd number. If it's 0, then it's an even number. Okay, then we're going to do the same thing for the y axis, and in here we're going to be basically setting either color 1 or color 2. We don't really care which color goes where. We simply need to make sure that the second time we add the color is going to be the opposite one. Okay, this is strictly visual. You can now also add a region over here so that you don't confuse it. Okay, we have our texture, but we have not yet added inside the world. The way Unity creates sprites and renders sprites is via a sprite renderer. A sprite renderer is a component, which means a component needs to exist onto a game object. Okay, let's do all of this programmatically. So I'm going to go over here and create a new game object, and I'm going to say map object, and we can also store the sprite renderer, although I believe we're not really going to have much use of this. We'll see, however. Okay, and let's say on create map object, let's create a new game object. We can also give it a name. Let's call it map, and for map renderer we're going to assign a new component on the map object, and we can do this by add component, sprite renderer. Okay, here is our map renderer. The add component also returns you the component you add, so we can simply cast it over there. But from the texture, we need to turn it into an actual sprite, So that means we also need to take our texture right now and turn that into a sprite. Okay, so how do we do this? First of all, the changes we do over here on that texture are not yet been applied, so let's do a text apply. This means that I have my data, but I haven't told my GPU to go and update the texture. This happens over there. Okay, so to turn into a texture into a sprite, we're going to have to create first a new rectangle. Position can start from 0, 0. And the width and the height we're going to be using will basically be max width, max height. Okay, then we're going to have to create a sprite, and to do that there is a call inside Unity, sprite, create the texture we have, the rectangle we just made, then the pivot position, let's center it, so I'm using vector2.1 multiplied by half, so 0.5. So we get the middle of our texture. The pivot will be sitting right on the middle. So to make our life easier, I'm simply going to set the pixels per unit down to 1. Okay, so 1 point inside Unity is going to be 1 pixel for this texture. We don't want any extrusion, and for sprite mesh type I'm simply going to be using a full rectangle. Okay, so this creates a sprite. We need to actually use a sprite, however, map renderer dot sprite equals sprite. So this way we basically have our map. Let's create the map. Let's call the method to create the map. So it's over there. And let's test this. Minimize that, let it compile. Down here you will see that it compiles, and I'm simply going to add a game object, which I'm going to call game manager. Drag and drop the game manager. You can also change the values we have over here, but what we do need to change is the color, and don't forget to raise the alpha, otherwise you won't have, it will be transparent. Okay. So for the second color, I'm going to color pick the first one and simply change a little bit its value. Okay, so let's click play and let's see what we did. Okay, here's what we did, what we made. Everything's working fine, but there is one small issue. Textures by default in Unity have filter points assigned. So what we do need to do right now will be to say texture.filter mode and set it to point. Previously it was by default, it is on bilinear. We simply need this to be on filter point, so there is no any there's no idealizing and all stuff like that trying to place it. So with filter point we make sure that each pixel is its own color, which is exactly what we need in our case. Let's hit play. Okay, and here's a map. Let's bring back our camera, let's say at size 8, and we can also change the color to black. Change the color to black and set the projection size to 8. And when we hit play, okay, we have our map. Later we're going to fix this and make it a little bit prettier, but for now this is all we need. So let's end this part. As always, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, and if you like to see more videos like this, then consider supporting me on Patreon so we can keep making all of these nice things. I'll see you on the next one.